The way I see it, if you're going to build a time machine into a car, why not do it with some style? Here's your look in the NECA toys. Back to the Future Dr. Emmett Brown in hazmat suit. From Back to the Future, Dr. Emmett Brown, the genius inventor of the time machine and one of the greatest movie characters of all time, is ready to test his creation. Featuring the officially licensed likeness of actor Christopher Lloyd, this ultimate Doc Brown 7-inch scale action figure is based on his hazmat suit appearance in 1985. Great Scott, is what I would actually say, realizing that I had looked at all the other Doc Browns except for the 1985 hazmat suit Doc Brown. I was going through my collection one day and then looking through my Back to the Future figures, realizing I didn't have yet picked up this figure. I ended up grabbing this guy over on Entertainment Earth's website. So while the review is a little delayed, unfortunately, and I don't have the means to jump into a DeLorean and time travel myself back to when this guy was first released, we are going to still be looking at the hazmat suit Doc Brown. I hope you guys enjoy it. Grabbing the tape measure, though, is to see how tall Doc Brown stands. And we're going to also bring in the other Doc Browns in a moment. This one, though, from 1985, stands 7 inches exactly. Or the figure is going to be about 17.5 centimeters tall. I'm sure there's some time-traveling law that says you should never run into yourself, but I'm still going to do it in this review. Here's what the 1985 Doc Brown looks like with the Doc Brown from the past. Here's what Doc Brown also looks like with the Doc Brown from the future. And in all the three cases, you can see that they are using completely different head sculpts. And each one of the Doc Browns also had his own fair share of interchangeable head sculpts. I also did want to bring in a Marty McFly. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't find the Marty McFly from 1985, but I do have at least the one from the audition, which sort of does serve still as a 1985 Marty McFly, even though he does have the translucent fading hand, which really doesn't make any sense for him to travel back to the past. He should have had the different outfit instead. But anyways, though, you can kind of see that, again, like all the three Doc Browns are about sharing the same size to one another, and they're, of course, obviously all taller than the smaller Marty McFly. While, unfortunately, no Einstein makes an appearance with this release of Doc Brown, he does do still pretty good with all the other accessories that come included with the figure. The first of which, being, I guess, the smallest, the figure comes included with this tiny little notepad. The notepad, as you can see, has already been pulled back, and a few little pages frayed down below. Really small little detailed accessory. Something small, I'm sure, if I'm not too careful. I'm going to put that to the side. The figure also comes included with the revolver. The revolver, nicely done here in silver, with a little bit more of an ivory white here down below. This can be held, of course, in either one of his hands. The figure does actually have gripping hands, though not really these hands right now in the sockets of his forearms. Stay tuned, though, for that. The figure also comes included with, I'm glad to see they included his clipboard. A very makeshift clipboard, as you can see. Here's the back of the clipboard, by the way. But on the front, you've got a couple little calculators there on the top. Some notes that, of course, Doc Brown's taking note of. This can be held again in his hand, but he does have a dedicated hand for specifically holding the clipboard. Stay tuned for that. And while we don't have an Einstein, and we certainly don't have a time machine either, he does at least have the joystick controls. The joysticks themselves do not move, do not bend. You're just going to ultimately break it, and you're not going to have the time machine to go back to tell you not to bend those joysticks. But you can see there's a little readout display there on the top, little knobs, little dials, all the things you'd expect to see in a very elaborate looking remote control that he's essentially using for the time machine. I do again hope that at some point we do get ourselves an actual time machine DeLorean. We did get that die-cast one, but it was way too small to even accommodate these figures, and in fact, it was even too small to accommodate the animated Back to the Future figures. I hope that's something that we're eventually going to be getting from the folks over at NECA Toys. But in the meantime, those are his accessories, and then we can kind of move on to then hand, arm, and head territory. The figure comes include some swappable hands. One hand is actually more suited for holding the clipboard. The other hand is kind of holding more for the revolver. The revolver, you just want to just pry the fingers away from the palm. Probably should not have used moisturizer. If one thing I could probably tell myself in the past, don't always use moisturizer for your hands. Yes, it makes them look soft and supple in these reviews, but it usually makes things hard then to hold the accessories. He does have, again, this one. It's not really necessarily a trigger firing finger hand, but he still has at least the hand to hold the revolver. And then, of course, like I said, as promised, the figure also comes included with this hand here too. Now we can go ahead and remove this hand. He has two relaxed hands right now, one on this side, one on this side. And I don't remember even having this wire in the movie. It must have been accurate, though, because he has it here on this figure. Go ahead and just remove the hands, the relaxed hands. If you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, worry about that Rolex watch that he has on the one side of his arm. Don't worry about that. That's actually, it seems to be attached to the forearm. Normally, I would be jumping right to it right away, worrying that this was going to fall onto the floor, but it seems to be molded to the rest of his forearm. Then from there, you can go ahead like we did at the opener of this review. We could just bend the arm like this, then go ahead and take your clipboard like this, and then you can wedge it in between his fingers, just like this. Likely going to be the way I'm going to be displaying Doc Brown. Go ahead and remove that for right now. So those are his flesh skin hands. That seems awkward to say that. And then the figure comes included with his hazmat sleeves. Now the sleeves themselves are completely going to be removing these. You want to divorce these arms altogether from his torso, and then these are going to pop in place instead. Now what's different about these is that you're actually getting a full sleeve complete with hazmat gloves. This one actually does have the rolled up sleeves, and then he has the shirt underneath, again the Rolex watch, and then again he just has the skin hands underneath that. If you did want to swap out these arms, it's not as hard as you may think it may be, although I would certainly recommend taking a few passes with a hairdryer first. That's not the sound that a hairdryer makes. Let's go ahead and just remove that altogether. Then pop in the replacement arm. And I'll do it first only on the one side so you guys can see the difference between the two. See, again, this one does have the gloved hand. This one does not have the gloved hand. And then we're going to rinse and repeat on this side. Go ahead and remove this. There we go. And then we're just going to replace it then with this hand here, or this entire arm here. Popping it back into the socket and hoping at least it's secure enough in there so when we look at the figure's articulation, those arms aren't going to be coming off. While we're also on the topic of these hands, the figure also comes included with this specific hand, which is a better suited hand for really holding the revolver. In fact, I think actually when he's holding the revolver, he's wearing the gloved hand. So let's go ahead and remove it from not really the most functional of hands for that, and instead put it in the pistol firing hand. Just wedge that in there. There we go. A much better suited hand. Would you not agree? Then, of course, this can then swap out with this side of his body here. And, of course, you can then have him holding a revolver if you so wish. Then the figure comes included with a swappable head. And in order to do that, I'm going to go ahead and pick up the figure right now so you guys can get a closer look at a rather smug-looking Doc Brown. He still has blonde there in his hair. His hair is still, though, mostly white. And then there's also this one. Seems a little more surprised, like they found him. He doesn't know how, but they found him. You can swap out the head easily, easy peasy. And then you got this head sculpt here. The thing about the heads, let's just put this head sculpt down for a second. If we grab some of the ones that we looked at before from Doc Brown, this was the one I think from the future. If you look at the bottoms of them, they are using larger sockets, unfortunately, which means that you can't then use this head sculpt with this body. If you did want to have him looking as if he's had plastic surgery, you can see his skin is a little smoother in the future. Yeah, it's a shame, though, that the ball sockets aren't, though, the same size. I suppose you could probably dowel this a little bit bigger, but then, of course, then you're going to run into the problem. It's not going to fit with future Doc Brown. Then to also grab the one that came included with the past Doc Brown, this one's actually very close in design, very close in sculpt. But when you look at the bottom, again, it looks like the socket's just a little bit bigger. This one, you might have an easier time to fight over top of the ball joint. Eventually, the ball joint would just give way. It'd say, all right, fine, forget about it. You can have that and have the head. But this one would be a better suited head for, of course, having a much larger hole on the bottom of it. This one, again, this one that has the Band-Aid when he falls in the bathroom. This one is just a regular head sculpt, but very, very much similar head sculpts in design. To change out the head on Doc Brown, as we certainly have already changed enough on this poor figure, here again is the smiling face, which again is really, I would say like the Doc Browns and the Biff are probably the best looking figures we've gotten so far, sculpt-wise, from the Back to the Future lineup. You guys let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. But we're going to go ahead then and remove the head here. Just pop it off the ball joint. And again, you're having any problems doing that, you know what to do. Hair dryer. Well, you could also put it in hot water too. Let's go ahead and pop the new head in place. Just making sure, of course, it's completely on the neck. There we go. And then we've got Doc Brown with more of the surprised look on his face. Now, seeing as we already have a lot of surprised Doc Browns, I'm just going to, again, bring in the past one so you guys can see. It's my favorite face, I think, is this one right here. I think I'm probably going to be more likely to have this guy displayed on the shelf with the more smug look on his face instead of this one. But I do like this head sculpt too as well. For the rest of his body, he is wearing his hazmat suit, but though underneath it, you can see he's still wearing, it looks to be like a plaid shirt and a shirt underneath that. He has the little pocket protector clip. Actually, his pocket protector's right there with the pens, and then he's got a little clip in front of it with some reminder notes. He's got himself the stopwatch there on the side. Lots of cool stuff going on in this figure. Let's just move his arms out of the way. He has himself like the little pocket, little carrying case there on the side. Of course, a very loose belt, but on the other side, a very detailed looking tool belt. You can see there's some pliers, there's some screwdrivers, there's a flashlight in there as well. All the things someone would need, not only to be building a deck, but building also a time machine as well. And of course, you've got the symbol there on the back of the hazmat suit. The suit itself is a fairly soft plastic, while the arms, for obvious reasons, will be harder plastic, as well will be the legs. The closeness of color scheme is pretty close. I mean, it's a little bit brighter here. It's a little bit more off yellowish here, but it's pretty close in color scheme, the way they've designed this. Of course, you've got some little orange accents there for his pockets, some nice gold color that, of course, they brought in for his gloves. But all in all, a great-looking Doc Brown. For the articulation here on this guy, now that we've got this head sculpt in place, the head does rotate all the way around, though awkwardly while we do it, it also rotates the neck, because there's actually 2 points of articulation. There's one right here, and then there's a second point of posability down below at the base of the neck. So between the two, you can actually move Doc Brown's head quite a lot, in fact, back and forth all the way around. That would most definitely kill Doc Brown. And of course, just want to make sure we get that all the way on there. Shoulders do come out, even with the arms now switched out. Now, the arms come out, I would still say, not quite 90 degrees, maybe a little less than 90 degrees. I guess that could be 90 degrees. You can take the arms and rotate them all the way around. I think I've got them securely plugged in place here. The figure does have a bicep swivel, or I should say an elbow swivel. The figure does have a single hinge in the elbow only, but the hands do rotate all the way around with a hinge back and forth. For the obvious reasons of the fact the figure is encased inside a plastic suit, while he does have the articulation, you can't really feel where it is. You can kind of move it and know that there's something bending behind the scenes, but you don't actually know where the articulation point is. It's probably like right around here. The legs do split out. Just be mindful of the tool belt. The legs do split out. You can move them forward. You can move them back. A mild swivel at the top of the thigh. A single hinge again only on the lower leg. But the lower leg at least rotates back and forth. And there's some nice foot again articulation. Ankle rocker back and forth. In case you're also curious, Doc Brown, even in the present time, does have peg-holes on the undersides of his feet. Nice overall looking figure. Again, the only thing I wish this figure could have come included with was Einstein. Now, obviously, wishful thinking, I would hope at some point we're also going to be getting ourselves a DeLorean. I don't know, though, how dedicated NECA is to still continuing the Back to the Future line. I mean, with Doc Brown in his hazmat suit, as I bring in the other Doc Browns, make sure they don't touch one another. I know how Time Cop works. You don't want to have them touching one another. But seeing with Doc Brown came late, which was kind of surprising. I would have thought that they would have done the past or the present Doc Brown first, and then done the past and maybe then the future after that. But it ended up being the case that hazmat suit Doc Brown from 1985 was the last of the Doc Browns that we got. And I think also the last of the Back to the Future figures that we've gotten from NECA as well. I hope that's something that will change in the in the future. Actually, just before we jump over to final looks here for Doc Brown, there is one thing I did want to add on to this video. When we did have a look at the joystick here for the DeLorean, on the back of the joystick, lo and behold, you'll actually see that there's a peg. Well, remembering in the review, I did mention I didn't know why there was this string bit that was attached to his finger, and sure enough, you can take that little loop and attach it onto the peg. And then that gives Doc Brown the means to actually hold the joystick with this specific hand. Again, I only realized it later, but it's certainly something I did want to add on to this video in case you guys were curious as to why that was on his finger in the first place. Now that I've had the chance to look at the 1985 Doc Brown in his hazmat suit, I really wish I had jumped into a time machine. I don't know how expensive that would have been to create a time machine, and I don't certainly have the plutonium to do that either, but at least to have told my past self, hey, buddy, you didn't get the chance to look at this figure yet. You may want to jump over to an online source and see if you can track one down, because I wouldn't be then delivering a later review of looking at this guy. And though a little late, yes, at the game of certainly having a look at this Doc Brown, I am happy that I finally not only had the chance to review him, but finally having this guy as part of my collection. I mean, with the one Doc Brown that I really would have wanted of all the three, I do like the past and I do like the future Doc Browns, but the one I would have wanted the most was the one we ultimately got latest, was the 1985 version that can go really nicely with Marty McFly. Although I'm looking at the Marty McFly over there, it's not the one that actually has Life Preserver. I really wish I had actually found that figure for proper comparisons, but neither here nor there. I'm glad that this figure does come with the amount of accessories that he does, though truth be told, I really wish, if anything, they could have used some extra plastic to give ourselves Einstein. We don't have, I think, an Einstein of this scale for NECA figures, so I'm hoping it's something that we're going to eventually get down the road. Maybe an accessory set. I don't know, with a crate of plutonium, we can get ourselves Einstein. What are the small things could we probably get? A couple of maybe guitars for Marty McFly. But I do hope at some point we do get ourselves an accessory set with a much needed, much required Einstein that we can have on display with the rest of these figures that NECA Toys have done so far for the Back to the Future line. And we can only hope, ... that in the not so distant future, we will get an in-scale sized DeLorean that can go along with the figures that we've gotten so far from the folks over at NECA. What do you guys think of Doc Brown? Let me know down below in the comment section. And perhaps of the 3 Doc Browns that we have looked at, the past, now the present, and also the future, which of the 3 Doc Browns do you think is the better looking Doc Brown? Let me know down below in the comment section. Also as well, if you guys are interested to pick this one up for yourself, I did in fact find this one over on Entertainment Earth's website. It's not hot off the truck, mind you, but it certainly was something that was in stock at the time. If you guys are interested and you haven't had any luck to find this guy in the wild, you can click the link down below in the video description. If you don't mind me also saying, if you enjoyed this video, why not hit it with a like? If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing and certainly do want to stick around for more, then make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and move on over to the bell notification. There will be more NECA reviews coming your way. So as always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.